anuvartitaha, being followed by them. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charana Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhīṣmadeva and Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. Kindly repeat. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhīṣmadeva and Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The modern English law of primogeniture, or the law of inheritance by the firstborn, was also prevalent in those days when Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira ruled the earth and seas. In those days, the king of Hastinapur, now part of New Delhi, was the emperor of the world, including the seas, up to the time of Maharaj Parikshit. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was the ideal king or representative of Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa to rule over the kingdom of earth and was comparable to King Indra, the representative ruler of the heavenly planets. The demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Varuna and Vayu are representative kings of different planets of the universe. And similarly, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was also one of them, ruling over the kingdom of the earth. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was not a typically unenlightened political leader of modern democracy. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was instructed by Bhīṣmadeva and the infallible Lord also, and therefore he had full knowledge of everything in perfection. The modern elected executive head of a state is just like a puppet because he has no kingly power. Even if he is enlightened like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, he cannot do anything out of his own goodwill due to his constitutional position. Therefore, there are so many states over the earth quarreling because of ideological differences or other selfish motives. But a king like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira had no ideology of his own. He had but to follow the instructions of the infallible Lord and the Lord's representative and the authorized agent Bhīṣmadeva. It is instructed in the Shastras that one should follow the great authority and the infallible Lord without any personal motive and manufactured ideology. Therefore, it was possible for Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira to rule over the whole world, including the seas, because the principles were infallible and universally applicable to everyone. The conception of one world state can only be fulfilled if we can follow the infallible authority. An imperfect human being cannot create an ideology acceptable to everyone. Only the perfect and the infallible can create a program which is applicable at every place and can be followed by all in the world. It is the person who rules and not the impersonal government. If the person is perfect, the government is perfect. If the person is a fool, the government is a fool's paradise. That is the law of nature. There are so many stories of imperfect kings or executive heads. Therefore, the executive head must be a trained person like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, and he must have the full autocratic power to rule over the world. The conception of a world state can take shape only under the name of a perfect king like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira. The world was happy in those days because there were kings like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira to rule over the world. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimiraandasya Gnananjana Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamy Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Deshatarne. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktarvrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. In this verse, it is stated, Nishamya, that is Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, after being enlightened. How he was enlightened? By Bhīṣmoktam and Achyutoktam, what was spoken by Bhīṣma, and also the words or the instructions given by Kṛṣṇa. By hearing those instructions, he got knowledge and he was enlightened also by the instructions of Bhīṣma and Achyuta, Lord Kṛṣṇa, the infallible. So after he acquired knowledge and was enlightened by the words of Bhīṣma and Achyuta, what did Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira did? Pravritta. He engaged himself in Vijnana Vidhuta. Vijnana Vidhuta Vibramaha. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira engaged himself in whatever jnana he had got from Bhīṣma and Achyuta. He practically applied it, that knowledge, he applied it and followed it in the life, in ruling the kingdom. Jnana, Vijnana. Jnana is knowledge, and when you apply that knowledge in practical life, that is Vijnana. When you apply and follow as per that knowledge, that is Vijnana. So, Vijnana Vidhuta Vibramaha. So, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge. And Vibramaha, all his misgivings, misunderstandings were eradicated. That's why in the first he was telling, I don't want to rule because of me, to get this kingship, so many soldiers were killed. And so I am not eligible for this kingship. But when he heard the instructions by Bhīṣma and Achyuta, he accepted the ruling of the kingdom. So, because all his misgivings, misunderstandings were eradicated. Vibramaha. And Shashasa, thus he ruled over the earth. Shasasagam, he ruled over the earth, including the seas. How did he rule? Indraiva, just like Lord Indra, how he ruled in the heavenly planets, in the same way Lord Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira ruled the earthly planet. And Ajitāshrayaha, he was completely protected by the invincible Lord. Ajita. Ajita means one who is invincible. There is no one to conquer over him. The Lord cannot be conquered by anyone. He is invincible. And such a Lord was protecting Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira. Under the protection of such a Lord, that is Ajitāshraya, under the protection of the Lord, he was ruling over the earth and the seas. Paridiyupantam, that is including the seas, Anujanuvartitaha. And all his brothers, younger brothers, were in full cooperation with Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira's ruling. Prabhupada writes in the purport, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira's younger brothers were acting as his ministers and commanders of state, and there was full cooperation between the perfectly religious brothers of the king. Now in the modern days we see just in the family there will be two brothers and there will be fight for the property, for so many other problems. There will be problems in between just two brothers or two siblings, even sister brothers. But here 5 brothers were living in cooperation, complete harmony. Because Prabhupada gives an example in one place, in one lecture. Just like if I lead a life, it's compared to a circle, my circle. And the center of that circle the center of my circle is different from the center of another person's circle. So there will be overlapping of the circles. There will be clash, there will be misunderstandings. But if the center is same and a circle is drawn around it, concentric circle, what we call in the scientific term, there is no overlapping. So Krishna consciousness is like that. Center is one, Krishna. And each and everyone lives their life around one center. So there is no overlapping. So it was very much possible for the brothers, for the 5 brothers to live in harmony because their center was Krishna, one. Their center was, everyone's center was one, Krishna. And so they could live in harmony. But in the modern days, there is no one center. Each and every person has his own center of activities, and because of which there are so many clashes and disharmony amongst the family members also. And at the large also, in between countries, humanity, there is clashes because of this. There is no center as Krishna. So, Anujanavartita, that was the reason why all the brothers were in harmony with Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira. And in the previous verse, purport also we can see, Prabhupada writes in the purport about why the Lord wanted Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira to be placed on the king, on the position of a king. Prabhupada writes, in the previous verse it was about the anger between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. The clash between Kaurava and Pandavas also happened because Kaurava's center was not Krishna. The Pandavas' center was Krishna, but Kaurava's center was sense gratification, because of which there was a clash. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, this world is compared to a forest fire caused by the cohesion of bamboo bushes. Such a forest takes place automatically for bamboo. Cohesion occurs without external cause. Similarly, in the material world, the wrath of those who want to lord it over material nature interacts, and the fire of war takes place, exhausting the unwanted population. Such fire of war takes place, and the Lord has nothing to do with them. There are so many wars and happens in the world. That is because this cohesion, friction. And the Lord has nothing to do with them. Because each and every person wants to live a life of sense gratification without keeping the Lord as the center. And there is a fight, means the Lord is nothing to do with them. But because He wants to maintain the creation, He desires the mass of people to follow the right path of self-realization. But the Lord wants that the people follow the right path of self-realization, which enables the living being to enter into the kingdom of God. Because self-realization will enable the living entities to go back to home, back to Godhead. And so the Lord wants the living entity to live accordingly on the path of self-realization. The Lord wants the suffering human beings to come back home, back to Him, and cease to suffer the threefold material pangs. The Lord wants the living entity to come back home, back to Godhead, and completely cease, completely end the material miseries. The whole plan of creation is made in that way, and one who does not come to his senses suffers in the material world by pangs inflicted by the illusory energy of the Lord. So this is the plan of the Lord in the whole material creation, that the living entities who are suffering in this material world, they follow the path of self-realization and go back to the Lord again and live with the Lord. This is the plan of the Lord in the material creation. Just like even in the ordinary life, there is a prison house in the government ruling. That doesn't mean government wants all the citizens to go to the prison house and live there. Even if a person commits some mistake, some crime, and he goes to the prison house, that is to reform him and come back and live in harmony with the government rulings outside. Prison house is not meant for everyone to go and live there. The government does not want that everyone go to the prison house and live. In the same way, the Lord also does not want us to live in this material world suffering the threefold miseries. The Lord is very much wanting us to go back to Him. But we are entangled in this material world with the threefold miseries and suffering. Shri Shri Radha Govind ki jai. The Lord therefore wants His bona fide representative to rule the world. Why? Because the bona fide representative, if he rules the world, he will rule according to the Lord's plan. If a person is not bona fide representative of the Lord, he will rule according to his own whimsical ideology. Lord Shri Krishna descended to establish this sort of reign and to kill the unwanted persons who have nothing to do with His plan. So like Duryodhana and all were killed because they had nothing to do with the Lord's plan. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought according to the plan of the Lord so that undesirable persons could get out of the world and a peaceful kingdom under His devotee could be established. So this is the reason why the Lord wanted Yudhiṣṭhira to be enthroned. The Lord was therefore fully satisfied when King Yudhiṣṭhira was on the throne and the seedling of the dynasty of Kuru in the person of Mahārāja Parikshit was saved. So this is what Prabhupada writes in the previous purport, that why the Lord wanted Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira to be enthroned on the kingdom. And in this verse, Prabhupada explains how Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira ruled because he was enlightened by the words of Bhīṣma and Achyuta, And also in full harmony, in full cooperation with his brothers, he was able to rule. And also Prabhupada writes about how the modern elected executive head of a state is just like a puppet because he has no kingly power. Even someone in the modern day democracy wants to leave, if he is enlightened like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira and wants to rule as per, but he cannot. Prabhupada writes, even if he is enlightened like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, he cannot do anything out of his own goodwill due to his constitutional position. That's very true. Even a person is enlightened like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, in the democratic state it is very difficult. It is not so easy. That is the current situation of our country or of the world. So, Prabhupada, as a representative of the Lord, when he started printing Back to Godhead magazine in India, while he was in, before he went to Vrindavan and stayed, he started his printing the Back to Godhead magazines. And during that time, he also wrote letters to Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Patel. To some, he was asking some cooperation so that they can help him in his movement, to start his movement. For Mahatma Gandhi, he asked, you please join and push this movement. But later in 1956, Prabhupada writes one letter to the President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Prabhupada very beautifully writes that letter. Just like how here in the purport, Prabhupada writes that the king should rule according to the Lord's plan. And Prabhupada tries to explain that same Lord's plan to the President in the letter. We'll just go through that letter once. It is dated in 21st of November 1956. Kindly accept my humble obeisances. It is the custom of India from a time immemorial that a citizen of the state would approach the king to express his grievances for redemption, and the king would kindly consider his case as duty bound and give him necessary relief by the royal judgment. This is just Prabhupada is starting to approach by these words. At the present moment, Your Excellency is seated in the position of the king by the will and grace of the Lord, and as a true Vaishnava, I must accept Your Excellency as the representative of the Supreme Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, as he has expressed himself in the pages of Bhagavad Gita. In the 10th chapter, Kṛṣṇa says, Yadyad vibhuti mat sattvam Śrīmad urjitam eva. Anything glorious, anything beautiful is found in a person, that's my energy, that's my representation. So according to that, he is in the position of a king, ruling the whole country. So Prabhupada says, as the representative of the Supreme Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa has expressed himself in the pages of Bhagavad Gita. And as such, I beg to lay before you, most exalted honor, the following few lines for favorable consideration and do the needful in pure consciousness. Your Excellency is the representative of Shri Kṛṣṇa by authority, and I hope Shri Krishna will direct you from within in the matter of my transcendental service to him. I beg to submit herewith that by the grace of Shri Krishna, through his mercy personified, my spiritual master, I have realized it most thoroughly that going back to Godhead is the highest privilege of mankind, and that is the supreme perfection of human life. So Prabhupada is writing, what is the perfection of human life? Prabhupada says, by the mercy of Krishna and the mercy personified, my spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I have realized it. Prabhupada is not saying just, I have heard it. Prabhupada is saying, I have realized it most thoroughly. What has Prabhupada realized? That going back to Godhead is the highest privilege of mankind. And that is the supreme perfection of human life. It's Prabhupada writing out of his realization. Of course, he is a Nitya Siddha. There is nothing to realize. He is always in that position. But Prabhupada is mentioning that I have realized it most thoroughly that going back to Godhead is the highest privilege of mankind. Prabhupada further writes, unfortunately, the present day human civilization is very much attracted with the beauty of apara prakriti, the illusory material energy, and as such they are overpowered by the demonic form of propensity in the atheistic setup of civilization manifested in the matter of sense gratification. Prabhupada is very beautifully has formed the sentences of the modern civilization. That this tendency is dangerously harmful to the real progress of life. Whatever the modern civilization is dangerously harmful to the real progress of life. The aim of life should be to make a sincere effort to go back to Godhead, but contrary to this, the tendency is to go back to hell. Actually, the aim should be to go back to home, back to Godhead. But the current tendency is to go back to hell. Or in the cycle of evolutionary animal life, as it is described in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It is not to go back to home, back to Godhead, but go back to hell or into the cycle of animal life again. Please therefore save them from the great fall down. Prabhupada is requesting the President, please save them from the great fall down. Next, Prabhupada writes, believe me or not, I have got the clue of going back to Godhead. Just after leaving my present material body, and in order to take along with me all my contemporary men and women of the world, I have started my paper Back to Godhead. Prabhupada is writing, I have got the clue to go back to home, back to Godhead. And I just don't want to go alone. I want to take all my men and contemporary men and women of the world. And for this reason, I have started Back to Godhead as one of the means to the way. So, Back to Godhead printing and distributing is one of the means to the way to go back to home, back to Godhead. Apart from that, whatever he did later, distribution of books, printing the books, distribution of books, construction of temple, conducting all the Rath Yatras, festivals, these are all means to go back to home, back to Godhead. Means to take the people of the world to go back to home, back to Godhead. But during 1957, he had just started printing the Back to Godhead magazine. So he says, is one of the means to the way. Please do not think of me as an wonderful or a madman when I say that I shall go back to Godhead after leaving my present material body. It is quite possible for everyone and all of us. Prabhupada is so confidently telling it is quite possible for one and everyone to go back to home, back to Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said very clearly that whosoever may adopt the specific principle of accepting Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, he will be able to achieve the highest transcendental goal of life. Never mind what he is, either a born untouchable, a woman, a laborer, or a man dealing with rupees, annas, pies. His being so, what is there difficulty for a pious Brahmin and devoted king for going back to Godhead? Everyone should therefore adopt this principle of going back to Godhead in order to get released from the world of miseries with temporary existence. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Striyo Vaishyas Tata Shudra. Everyone can take to this devotional practice. It is not limited to particular place, caste or creed. Everyone can take this Krishna devotional practice. So Prabhupada states that everyone should therefore adopt this principle of going back to Godhead in order to get released from the world of miseries with temporary existence. This fact is corroborated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a practical demonstrator of Bhagavad Gita and as the most magnanimous incarnation of Sri Krishna. The personality of Sri Krishna Chaitanya has made the path of going back to Godhead so easy for everyone that even a boy of the world can swim across the ocean of religiosity, although it is injected with so many dangerous animals ready to devour up a fallen person in that great massive water. Even a small child can swim over the ocean of material existence by practicing devotional service as given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In spite of all the great animals in the ocean, a boy, even a small boy, can cross over. That is, in spite of all these, so many Mayavadis and other so-called religious or spiritual organizations or practices, in midst of them also, anyone can cross over the ocean of material existence just by following the principle, practicing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's bhakti principles. As such, I am feeling as sure of going back to Godhead as I feel without any doubt after taking my dinner and have eaten to my satisfaction. This feeling is a necessary concomitant factor of the great science of devotional service in the approved line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is a verse in Bhagavatam, Bhakti Pareshanubhave Viraktiranyatra Syat. Bhakti, Paraisha Anubhava and Virakti. When we practice devotional service to the Lord, these three things one should realize. What is that? Bhakti. One should realize, one should develop bhakti unto the Lord, intense devotion unto the Lord. Paraisha Anubhava, the experience, the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paraisha Anubhava, and Virakti, detachment. These three things should come when we practice devotional service. And it says, as good as when we eat something. When we are hungry, we take food. And when we start taking food, we feel that I'm getting energy. I'm getting satisfaction, tushti, pushti, ankshutapayo. And I feel that my hunger is eradicated. In the same way, when we follow devotional service, we should feel that, yes, I am progressing in devotional service. So Prabhupada is saying that as such, I am feeling as sure of going back to Godhead as I feel without any doubt after taking my dinner that I have eaten to my satisfaction. In the same way, Prabhupada is saying, I am so confident of going back to home, back to Godhead. As confident as when we eat dinner, when we eat food, we feel that hunger is eradicated and we get energy and nourishment to the body. In the same way, when we practice bhakti, we should feel that yes, we should have that confidence, yes, it is possible for me to go back to Godhead. So this is the clue what Prabhupada is giving in the letter to the President of India. I am therefore very eager to broadcast the secret of my success to all men and women of the world as a natural consequence, and I am seeking your excellency's help and cooperation in this great attempt of transcendental service. So Prabhupada is giving the clue, and he is telling, I want to spread this to the people of the world and take them also along with to the kingdom of God. So just like how Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was enlightened by the words of Bhīṣma and our Lord, Prabhupada also tried to enlighten by the words of the Lord. And as he says, it is very difficult for a person in this democracy to bring such huge changes in the rulings. But it is not difficult for us to follow the instructions of Prabhupada. It's very important for us to take it very seriously. Prabhupada is so seriously telling, I've got the clue to go back to back to Godhead. And it is very much possible, Prabhupada says. So, many places Prabhupada says we have got a great responsibility than anyone to save ourselves and to save others. And this is the best humanitarian work. So it is very important for us to understand the words of Prabhupada, realize it ourselves by practicing it, and try to give to others also for their benefit. I'll stop here. Any questions? ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, दागोर प्रेमानंदी.
శ్రీకృష్ణుణ్ణి చేరుకోవడానికి, కృష్ణ భక్తిని అందరికీ అందించటానికి బృందావనం వైపు ఉరకలేస్తున్న యమునోత్రి. విష్ణుపాదమే తన పుట్టినిల్లుగా కైలాసం చేరుకోవడానికి పరుగులు తీస్తున్న గంగోత్రి. కురుక్షేత్ర ఘోరహత్యా పాపం శంకరుణ్ణి శాంతపరచడం లక్ష్యంగా పాండవులు నిర్మించిన కేదార్నాథ్. సమస్త సాధు పుంగవులకు, ఋషులకు, ఆధ్యాత్మిక సాధనకు స్ఫూర్తినిచ్చే నరనారాయణులను నడయాడిన ప్రదేశం బద్రీనాథ్.
హరే కృష్ణ గోల్డెన్ టెంపుల్ వారి మరో అపురూప కానుక హరే కృష్ణవాణి ఆధ్యాత్మిక మాసపత్రిక. ఇప్పుడు మొబైల్ యాప్ ద్వారా కూడా సులభంగా పత్రికలు చదువుకునే సౌకర్యం, వార్షిక సభ్యత్వం, భగవద్గీత, భాగవత ప్రవచనాలు, స్ఫూర్తి సందేశాలు, ఇంకా మరెన్నో సదుపాయాలతో హరే కృష్ణవాణి మొబైల్ యాప్ నేడే డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకోండి. మరిన్ని వివరాల కోసం కాల్ చేయండి 9133